sure all your zip ties are in place, all your wiring's in place. These KWs up under this corner right here, where they come across the frame, they like to short out if the zip ties are missing, and yours aren't. Yours is all nice and tight and tidy.
Okay.
That's all good. This airline likes to corrode and rust out. It looks good. Wiring looks good. Doesn't look like the engine's been apart. Of course, you do need an EGR tune-up, which is the, the IMAP sensor here, and then the exhaust back pressure sensor. You need to clean those sensors up really well. That'll improve your fuel mileage and everything. And of course, these pipes and EGR valves and all that, they get clogged and dirty. This filter here, you have a choice with it. You can spend $80 every other oil change to replace it. This is the crankcase filter. Or you can drill it out with a drill, with a 1/2-inch drill, and put a hole in the top right corner of the filter, not the cover. This is the cover of the filter inside, right here in the top corner of the filter itself. Drill it out, permanently disable it. Or you can buy a Cummins filter. It's called a maintenance-free filter from Cummins, and all it is the filter casing with a hole in it, which is the same thing as you drill in.
Okay.
But I think it's like $60 from them. Thing out. What it does when you drill it out is it lets the engine breathe better. But if you have any blow-by, in other words, your piston rings are worn out, your liners are polished out, you got a lot of blow-by, you might start to see some of it, come out the bottom versus catching it with the filter. What happens when this clogs up, it's really bad for the engine. What happens when this clogs up is it shortens the life of your turbocharger really fast. And also makes oil bleed out the plugs and connectors, and you get oil seepage, and then the DOT is like, well, you got oil coming out of your motor. And some people don't even know there's a filter there, so they wouldn't know to change it. And then the next thing you know, they got a bad turbocharger, and they've gone to the dealership, and the dealership says, oh, you got a blown turbocharger. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to change the turbocharger. They're not even going to tell you about this.
Okay.
Why would they? The software didn't say it was clogged. There is a sensor to see if that tells the engine if this is clogged up, but it has to be pretty severe.
Okay.
So I wouldn't rely on that.
All right.
So just some things to think about. The belts don't look bad. What kind of clutch do you have? Do you have an air operated clutch or an electric? It's an air operated clutch. That's good.
Let's see.
It's got an air line going to it right here instead of wiring, and the air line comes right here. So that's good. I like the air operated clutches better.
Want to show that on this camera?
Yeah, it's got an air line right here. That's an air hose right there instead of electrical.
Huh.
And the air hose goes right here. You can see it goes right there. So
Okay.
the belt looks a little kind of worn out, but not bad. It looks acceptable anyway. Yeah, that looks pretty good.
Rolling?
Alright, this is your AC belt. It looks good. It's not cracked or worn. You see the pulley here? How it's shiny right there?
Yes.
Where it's worn? You see how it perfectly matches the belt, the width? That means that pulley's good. When that pulley starts to go bad, it starts to sag, and then the belt kind of rides this way on it, and it makes a wider path.
Okay.
I'm going to look for the same thing here on their main drive belt, which is going to be that pulley. It looks good too. Those trucks don't have that much age on it, so to be expected. Now, there's one thing I see that I absolutely hate, and everybody on my forum is going to tell you the same thing. Right here, your transmission, there's a kit to get rid of this thing, okay? Your transmission is cooled by a heat exchanger right here. Okay, your transmission is cooled with a coolant, with this little heat exchanger. The coolant comes in, and the oil from your transmission comes in here. Those things are the biggest problem with the transmissions on these trucks. When that thing always corrodes out by the time you get 400,000 or 500,000 miles on it. Keep that in mind. And when it does, it puts coolant in your transmission and destroys it, and it costs you $3,000 or $4,000 to fix your transmission over that stupid cooler. Everybody I know that has this cooler, when that happens to their engine, they say, "Damn it! I wish I would have gotten rid of it long ago," because there's a conversion kit available to put an air-cooled cooler out here on the front, in front of the radiator. Mine has the air-cooled one. Okay, to put an air coolant out here in the front and just move those hoses, put a new hose on there and come out here at the front. It's fairly easy to do. I've never done one, but they say it's fairly easy to do. And they get rid of that thing. That thing is terrible. And every one of them corrode and rust out.
Okay.
So that's just something to keep in mind, maybe at the end of the year, next year, one of your projects for the truck. it's very important to keep after this stuff because it's, you know, $300-400 for an air cooler,
Yeah.
or $3,000 or $4,000 for a transmission, and plus the labor to have it replaced. You know, you're talking a $6,000-7,000 repair
Right.
for a $300-400 item. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind. Everybody hates those,
Okay.
so they're just terrible. Front shocks look okay. There's no oil coming out of them. Front brakes look good. Like I say, this thing don't have a lot of age on it, so it's got a little bit. One thing to check is your springs. Your shackles. The shackles on these love to go bad in the back and in the front, especially on these Pete's and KWs love to do this. Let me get my other mirror.
Rolling.
All right, I was talking about this width. Here's the width of the wear. You can see the wear, or the shiny area, is the same exact width as the belt. And of course, there's another one down here, the pulley down there, which you can't hardly see with the camera, but I looked at it and it looks good too. So just a visual inspection without taking things apart, you know. We know the alternator looked pretty good. The thermal camera, if the diodes are going bad, we show a lot of heat right here in this area, and it was actually pretty even.
Okay.
The heat, it looked good. The turbo looked good. The heat was really good. One thing you can tell how hard a truck was driven, or how hard they really, you know, hammered the engine during its life so far, is the turbocharger. One of the ways you can tell is this rust. Okay, this rust. You see this rust right here? How much bleed through it had towards the face is how hot they really got this thing, and how hard they just really hammered the motor. Okay, and people that drive really hard, this rust is about halfway across.
Okay.
So yours isn't very far, which means, as a whole, this is not showing indication of, hey, somebody really drove this thing really hard. You can see that it hasn't been driven really hard. The paint's still on it. It doesn't look bad. Doesn't mean, it's just opinion. Doesn't mean anything much, but it tells me a lot as far as what I've seen, wearing people's motors and things like that versus, how hot this has gotten.
Okay.
So to me, it tells me, hey, this thing might not have been driven that hard. Might not have been abused that badly. I don't see any black sooty areas. You look for black sooty areas around here, around the manifold, around the bolts and the joints, to see if there's any leaks. Because if there's any leaks at all, you lose fuel mileage, and also it's bad for the engine. So I don't see any soot or any traces of soot or anything like that. One thing I do see that's bad is you've got about $250,000 on this, and this is the original doser injector for the emission system. You're gonna, at the very least, you're gonna want to clean that thing, but you probably should replace it at 250,000 miles. When you get to 250,000, you should replace that thing. If you're gonna keep the emission system active and running on it.
All right.
So that's one of the things you're gonna have to replace, about $300 or so, something like that. But in the meantime, you could probably just pull this little thing back, slide it back a little bit, and get a wire brush up in there, and clean the nozzle. It's like an injector in there, like a spray can.
Yeah.
And it sprays fuel, and that's what keeps the emissions working. But what happens is it's clogged up, and then it bleeds fuel, and it doesn't spray, and then it's a lot harder for the system to keep after itself. You may not ever get no lights. Eventually, you will get lights if it gets bad enough, but it may not be giving you any lights, but it's costing you fuel because it's constantly trying to, keep after it, and it can't do it as efficiently. So it's going to use more fuel because it actually is dumping fuel in your exhaust. So if it's spraying nice and fine mist, and it's really nice and clean, it uses a lot less fuel.
All right.
That's part of your fuel consumption on this engine. So it's starting to rain out here a little bit. Motor mounts look good. Transmission looks good. Wiring up in there looks good. I'm just giving some inspections. Cab mounts look good. You got a Schrader valve that's open here that should have a cap on it that's missing.
Okay.
I would get a new cap for that, and you got one missing here too. So somebody's done a lot of AC work to this, or possibly did, and now both these caps are missing. And what happens is dirt gets in here, and that's really bad because what happens is with those caps missing, anybody services your AC and they connect to this, it's going to push the dirt right in the pipe, and these things are really sensitive for dirt, these systems. So you need to clean this out really good with some brake cleaner or something, not too harsh, like some methanol type brake cleaner, not the real harsh kind. Clean it up really good and put a new cap on here.
Okay.
Get these things capped off again. Because I would definitely do that. You need to seal these back up. So That's something that I would do. Your hoses and everything, you know, you might want to go through and just snug all your hoses. Make sure all these clamps are all real tight, you know, because they do get loose after a couple 100,000 miles, especially the radio. See these silicone hoses? They're real soft.
Mm-hmm.
They compress, and then the clamp doesn't hold as well. And then all of a sudden you get leakage, you know, and then you're losing coolant. You don't know where it's going. Especially that one up there in the middle. These KWs are notorious for that one in the middle up there leaking real bad, right up there by the cooler, by the, you know, the clamps get weak.
Just go through and tighten them.
Just make sure they're snug, yeah. Any silicone hoses, the clamps. So, these are compression clamps. You don't have to worry about them. You know, they're spring clamps. So. Windshield wipers, all that work. Headlights work. Tail lights, all the marker lights.
Mm-hmm.
Mirrors, the electrical on the mirrors work.
Mm-hmm.
Your mirrors electric?
Yeah.
And they work? Okay. Exhaust system. It's all sealed up under here. It's kind of hard to get to, see. But like I say, you got a filter under there, you got an ejector under there, and some other components that need service once in a while. Every so often. I don't see any oil leaking nowhere, nothing pouring, no fuel problems.
Anything
Is
you
there
want
any
to...
gunk in the tanks? Can you see to the
Well,
bottom, or do you have the
can't, but I
screens?
know that one's a little stripped, so I have found that one has made its way off a couple times. So
The bottom of the tanks, there's a little bit of gunk in them, but not enough to really worry about. It's a little discoloration.
okay.
Anything you want to show on the camera?
Yeah, you can see there if you want to. You can see a tiny little bit. It's just a little bit discolored in the bottom. It's kind of brownish, yellowish.
Mm-hmm.
I call that lot rot. You know, from when they set, you know, the fuel. And all that. So just, you know, run some fuel through it. And, you know, don't be afraid to drive it hard. And, you know, when you first, because you got a warranty on it right now.
Right.
Within the first so many days, I would drive the hell out of it and drive it hard, just to make sure there's nothing wrong with it. You want to find out now versus 3 months from now when there's no more warranty, or they start claiming, hey, you've had it this long, what did you do to it?
Right.
This kind of stuff.
Okay.
You know, I call it lot rot. You know, anytime a truck sits, it's really bad for them. Really bad for every system on them. They just don't like to sit. Taking a look, that's what I see. I mean, I'm sure I can think of about 100 more things. I see that somebody's adjusted this valve a little bit.
How can you tell?
Because they broke the paint on it here, and you can see that it's twisted. So somebody's lowered it. It looks like, yeah, and that's fine. What you want to do is when it's sitting at height, what I do to mine is I put a 2x4 across here, and you want about a pinky width from the 2x4 to the top of the frame. That's generally how I set mine. That's most people how they like to set them.
Okay.
And, you know, some people will say, well, you do it by the drive line. You make sure the drive line is straight and different things. But you know, I like to set mine that way. And it's usually makes the drive line straight when you do that. So you don't want it below the frame too far, and you don't want it above the frame too far. Because if you drop the trailer off the fifth wheel, it's going to chew your tires up. You know, you want a little bit. You want the tires to, you know, trailer drops. You want it to bounce on the tires a little bit, but you don't want it to be sitting on just the tires completely. So.
Okay.
And you don't want it to just smack the frame. You know?
Yeah.
And you also, you know, have problems with height. You know, if you got too high, the next guy has to grab that trailer, is going to be cussing you out. Going here. These joints right here, and right back there, right there, those joints. They like to wear on these KWs and Peterbilts as well. What happens is you'll be turning a corner really hard and really sharp. You'll be turning a corner and you'll feel this pop in the front end. You know, it's not unusual. Pizza KWs love to do this. Okay, it's because these joints like to get play in them, and you can inspect it right here. You can see that joint right there has almost no play in it. Just a tiny, just a hair. Has almost none, okay? And on that side too. So that one looks really good. It's usually the front ones that cause the popping. So that one looks really good. This one has a little more. You can see there's a little bit of space there between the frame and the bushing itself. So it's got a little bit, but it ain't bad. So yeah, you can see it hasn't been jumping back and forth either. It's pretty dirty. So you can put your finger in here, about right here on the spring, and you can do the other side and feel the same thing. and see if it's the same amount of gas. Because if the spring is worn out or bent or messed up, it'll have a bigger gap. And it don't. It looks about the same. So it feels about the same. And you can also see across here, you can see how much gap's back there. And then you can see on the other side. When they start going bad, this spring will actually start looking like this and go up a little bit like that. And you can see that. And by the time it gets that way, you're running on the danger zone. Cut.
Rolling.
I noticed also you have a hydraulic clutch, which makes it easier to press the clutch pedal. And your fluid is on the bare minimum. You see that? That's the minimum. That's the maximum. You see the little line right there? So you're on minimum. So you need to add some fluid to that. And it should tell you what to add. I should say on there somewhere what to put in it. But yeah, you're at minimum, and you need to add some. So that's the cap right here. If that thing gets too low, what happens is it may shut you down. It may keep you from going in gear. Stay on the cap here. Let me clean this up. Cut.